Ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome back to Boz Comics. I'm pretty excited today. We're going to kick it old school. We're going to be simply reviewing a comic rather than diving into some, heady topics about politics or social issues or drama within the comic book industry. We're just going to be looking at a book that came out on Wednesday and talking about whether or not I think you should buy it. Spoiler alert, I think you should. All right, so today we are looking at The Amazing Spider-Man, number 44. So, quick background, at least quick by my standards. For 10 plus years, a while back, Dan Slott was writing the mainline Spider-Man title, The Amazing Spider-Man. And way back in the day when I was still living in my parents' basement, at the start of Slott's run, there were aspects to it that I kind of thought were okay. I was kind of into it. But then as time went on, Slott clearly got tired of the book. And I got exponentially more tired of Slott. I don't think he's a good writer. I don't think he's a good person. And I think whatever fundamental understanding he may have had regarding the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, initially, I think he's long since lost it. So, if you haven't picked it up by now, if you're a new fan of this channel, I am not a fan of Slott or the Slott era. So that may be coloring some of my judgment when it comes to evaluating the current run that started back in 2018, headed up by Nick Spencer. I will say, though, I've always been something of a fan of Nick Spencer. I never read anything from Secret Empire, the infamous Yahtzee Cap storyline. But I did read his series, Morning Glories, and I really loved the shit out of it. And I was kind of sad that he seems to have dropped it. But, when I heard that he was taking over for Spider-Man, I was really pumped. And when in the very first issue, he brings Peter and Mary Jane back together, he presumably he's not allowed to let them get married again, but he brings them back together. I was super here for it. So I think as far as Marvel books are concerned, there's only 4 that I'm following right now. The Immortal Hulk, and I'm way behind on that. Ghost Rider, Daredevil, and this one, of course, Spider-Man, because even when Slott was writing it, I almost never missed an issue. So what's this particular issue about? Well, this is a perfect jumping on point, more or less, because we've just wrapped up the most recent storyline. This seems to be kind of a bridge issue. We're finally dealing with Kindred, the villain that's been kind of lurking in the background for some time, scheming against Spider-Man from the shadows, the creepy, crawly, bug-like man or woman, who really knows, creature wrapped up in purple and rags. Seems to have this deep, intimate knowledge of Spider-Man, but also this incredibly deep-seated hatred of him. Seems very resentful of, how Spider-Man, involves other people in his life. And so it's led a lot of people to speculate that it might be Harry Osborn, back from the dead. Other people have suggested that it could be Gwen Stacy, which is my personal preference. I really hope that that's the reveal that we end up with, is that, it's actually Peter's long-lost love, resurrected and empowered and turned villainous, because I think that would be really uncharted territory for the character. I'd be very much into that. But so Kindred has kind of been in the background, pulling strings and making shit happen, rather than directly attacking Spider-Man himself. I'm going to say himself. I'm going to use male pronouns because that's what I initially thought Kindred was. If it turns out to be Gwen Stacy or some other female character, I will, of course, adjust. But the problem with the Nick Spencer run up till now has been that it's all very decompressed. We've got this interesting, fascinating shit with Kindred going on, and the mystery is what is happening here? Who is this guy that's been stalking Spider-Man and slowly closing a net or a web, if you will, around him? Who is he? But the problem is, the storytelling has been so decompressed. Part of that, I don't think, is Nick Spencer's fault. I think a lot of that may very well be editorial mandate for its own sake. Them telling them, like, Nick, you've got to stretch this out. We're nearing, in terms of milestone numbering, we're nearing issue 850. In terms of the new numbering, Spencer's run, we are nearing a 50th issue. My guess is that when we reveal who Kindred is, that's when it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the 50th issue. So we've got 6 more issues, assuming 2 issues a month, 3 more months until that happens. But yeah, I think Nick has been, Spencer has been forced to string this along far longer than is healthier. I've stayed invested, but I know a lot of people have not. Also, there's been lots of events. I think there was at least 2 or 3 events that were thrown in there that Spider-Man had to participate in. And so that kind of really stalled things a little bit, which is frustrating. It's always frustrating. It's one of the reasons I hate universe-wide events. I hate them when DC does them. I hate them when Marvel does them. That's one of the advantages to things like Image and other smaller indie companies, is you're never going to run into that shit, even if they do crossover stuff. You're never going to have these like big events that come in and interrupt stories for, an issue or 2 or 3, and kill the momentum and make you wait longer and all this bullshit. Never happens. Okay, so the actual plot of the issue. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, so I'll just say that it appears that Peter is having a dream, but it's a strange sort of dream. It's experienced from the perspective of a D-list villain I think I've seen before, but I'm not sure, called Overdrive. And Overdrive is recounting to Spider-Man about how he served as a getaway driver for a heist. Things went bad. They were confronted by the Sin Eater, which is a character back from the 80s in Spider-Man comics. He was a cop named Stan Carter who went crazy and started killing criminals, and then ultimately ended up killing one of Spider-Man's allies back in the day as well, Police Captain Jean DeWolf. And she doesn't get brought up enough in modern continuity, and it actually bothers me. Like, because back in the day, Spider-Man was like public enemy number 1 with the cops, and Jean DeWolf actually was very friendly to Spider-Man and kind of tried to be his Commissioner Gordon, if you will. So her loss was a big one in the books in the 80s. And I think too many writers, they've kind of forgotten about that. I'm assuming that if Spencer is bringing back the Sin Eater, we were shown earlier that Sin Eater has seemingly been resurrected by Kindred using whatever kind of strange powers he has going on. He's set up to torment Spider-Man in some way, I'm assuming we're going to get some references to Jean DeWolf, which I think is pretty cool. But anyway, so Sin Eater, is after Overdrive and his crew, wreak some havoc. Chase ensues between the two, and somehow it translates into this dream-like setting, and it's weird. It's this weird, bizarre thing with lots of twists and turns that I won't spoil, because I will say I enjoyed the issue. What I'll say is this: by the end of the issue, I was not sure what in the blue fuck was going on. It was very trippy. It was very weird. It didn't really answer any questions. It just kind of created more. And tonally, it was very inconsistent with what Spencer's run has primarily been thus far. It's up till now, it's largely been pretty light on the emotion. It's been pretty high adventure. It's been pretty pretty whimsical with some looming drama and dread in the background where this Kindred character is concerned. The interesting thing is my personal theory is that this is the kind of tone that Spencer has been trying to build to all along, but whether it be because of just poor choices on his part or because of editorial mandate, this shit's gotten so played out and dragged on that some of that momentum is killed, and some of that, like I said, there's a real tonal inconsistency. We don't really feel like we built up to this sudden tone shift organically. I don't feel like the book has been this dark since the Hunted arc, like I think nearly 2 years ago. The Hunted arc, by the way, was very fucking good. Oh God, there was an issue in particular that made me almost cry. It was so emotional. I was so into it. But this is good. This is good. I'd like to see more of these serious stories. I think Spencer has a real command of being able to make deep cuts from the lore of Spider-Man and then using it to elicit a strong emotional response. And that seems to kind of be what's happening here. There's a great scene towards the end of the book where Peter, I think he calls MJ and he gets her voicemail. And it really kind of informs his character because he's kind of sitting there in his apartment and he kind of unburdens himself a little bit and kind of lets his guard down and has kind of a real earnest emotional moment on her voicemail, asking her to come home. It's a really powerful moment. I urge you to read it for yourselves. It's quite good. I will say that at the end of the book, the very end, I won't spoil what the very end of the book is, but the literal last page reveal irritated the shit out of me because I feel like it is telling us there will be an event. And if I have not made this very clear, I fucking can't stand events, except for in very rare circumstances. I generally feel like the events that I do enjoy are the exception that prove the rule. So I am afraid that, I'm like, oh man, the main story's finally moving forward in like 20 issues or more. Shit's finally happening. I feel like we're about to get bamboozled again, but maybe I'm wrong, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best. I'm very excited. I thought, taken on its own merits, you might not understand much of like why what's happening is happening, but I think this issue is a really cool kind of horror movie-esque experience that if you like your Spider-Man stories with a little bit more touch of drama and gravitas and seriousness, like this is probably something you'll like. Came out this past Wednesday. You should still be able to get it in your local comic book shop if they're open. You can get it digitally on Comixology. And I mean, shit, if you can pirate it, I guess. Not that I advocate sailing the high seas, but I also understand the state of things right now. And I mean, fuck, hey, maybe you can't leave your fucking house and maybe you hate spending money on digital I don't fucking know. I shouldn't advocate for piracy. I'm a bad dude. I'm bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, okay, now I'm just being goofy because I'm sleep deprived. I'm gonna cut it here. Book's weird but cool. Check it out. It's probably as good a place as any to jump back into Spider-Man. Thanks for listening. I will see you guys tomorrow.